You've been lied to about what it takes to stay mobile after 60. The fitness industry wants you to believe you need a gym membership, a personal trainer, and an hour a day. Meanwhile, in Japanese nursing homes, residents in wheelchairs perform a 5-minute standing routine every single morning, and a 2024 study of over 11,000 seniors found it reduced functional disability by up to 19%. This routine was created in 1928 by a postal insurance company trying to keep workers healthy. It was so effective, Japan has broadcast it on national radio every morning for 97 years. Let me be clear, this is not a miracle story. This is a practical protocol backed by a Phase 3 trial. Consider the numbers that frame this story. Japan's average life expectancy sits at roughly 87 years for women and 81 for men, ranking among the highest on Earth. Compare that to the United States, where the CDC reports that only about 12% of adults over 65 meet the federal aerobic and strength training guidelines combined. Nearly 9 out of 10 American seniors are functionally undertrained, while their Japanese counterparts, working with a fraction of the equipment, time, and gym infrastructure, keep walking, climbing stairs, and living independently into their late 80s. Inside Japan, this gap is not blamed on genetics or sushi. Domestically, public health officials, geriatricians, and longevity researchers consistently point to one cultural pillar: the morning broadcast known as Radio Taiso. It is the closest thing any modern nation has to a prescription written for an entire population, repeated 365 days a year for almost a century. The first surprise is the intensity. Radio Taiso looks like gentle arm swings and shallow knee bends, but when researchers strapped metabolic monitors to practitioners, the routine measured between 4.0 and 4.5 mets, the same energy cost as brisk walking and nearly double that of light housework. Translation: the cardiovascular and neuromuscular systems treat those 3 minutes as moderate intensity exercise, even when the practitioner never leaves a 1-meter square of floor. Then came the 2024 evidence. A cohort study tracking 11,219 older Japanese adults found that those who practiced Radio Taiso regularly had an 18% lower risk of developing dementia compared with non-practitioners. The same body of research linked group calisthenics to reductions of 13 to 19% in functional disability and moderate to severe disability across the aging population. Skeptics argued this was correlation, not causation, until a Phase 3 randomized controlled trial published the same year tested the routine in frail older adults. The intervention group showed measurable improvements in agility, balance, and endurance over the control group. Phase 3 is the same trial tier used to approve pharmaceuticals. In other words, a 3-minute sequence of arm circles and trunk bends cleared a scientific bar that most supplements and fitness fads never approach. The control group received standard care recommendations, but no structured movement protocol, making the contrast between groups even sharper. And the program wasn't even invented by the Japanese. The origin story reads like a borrowed blueprint. In 1928, Japan's Postal Insurance Division, the agency responsible for keeping policyholders alive long enough to pay premiums, needed a public health tool. Their researchers traveled to the United States and studied calisthenics programs run by American life insurance companies, particularly Metropolitan Life, which had been broadcasting morning exercise segments on U.S. radio in the 1920s. The Japanese version launched on November 1, 1928, timed to the enthronement of Emperor Hirohito. It was broadcast nationally, simple enough for any schoolchild or grandparent, and required nothing but standing room. Then came the disruption. After World War II, Allied occupation authorities banned Radio Taiso in 1946, viewing the synchronized national exercise as too closely tied to wartime nationalism and group conformity. For 5 years, the broadcasts went silent. In 1951, a redesigned, demilitarized version returned to the airwaves, stripped of its political baggage, but keeping the same 13 core movements. From that point forward, the program embedded itself into the fabric of Japanese institutions. School children performed it before class. Factory workers performed it on the assembly line. Construction crews did it at 6:30 a.m. before pouring concrete. Senior community centers built their morning schedules around the NHK broadcast. The movements themselves remained unchanged. Only the context shifted from duty to wellness. What had started as a postal insurance experiment became a national habit, one that Americans had pioneered, abandoned, and never recovered. Your doctor will never tell you this, but if you're over 60, the next video breaks down all 13 Radio Taiso movements with modifications for limited mobility. Subscribe so you don't miss the protocol they use in Japanese clinics. Today, an estimated 20 to 27 million people in Japan perform at least 5 minutes of Radio Taiso every single day. That is roughly 1 in 5 citizens of the country repeating the same sequence at the same hour. The full broadcast, including a warm-up segment and a slower cool-down version called Radio Taiso No. 2, runs about 10 minutes from start to finish, the same time it takes to brew a pot of coffee. That accessibility is the entire point. Nursing home residents in wheelchairs perform adapted versions, doing the arm raises, trunk rotations, and breathing patterns while seated. Stroke survivors do half the movements with one side of the body. 90-year-olds with osteoporosis skip movement 11, the low-impact star jumps, and substitute heel raises instead. Nobody is excluded for being too frail. The program scales down to whatever the body can offer that morning. In Okinawa, the prefecture famous for producing more centenarians per capita than almost anywhere on Earth, researchers interviewing the oldest residents kept hearing the same answer about staying mobile into their 90s. A short daily morning routine, often Radio Taiso, performed before the first meal. Author Hector Garcia documented this in his 2016 book Ikigai, and CNBC's June 2023 reporting reached the same conclusion. The ritual is not a workout. It is a small, repeatable promise the body keeps to itself before the day begins. The movements require no equipment, no special clothing, and no instruction beyond the first week. Here is the turning point that most Western fitness coverage misses. The Japanese do not treat Radio Taiso as exercise. They treat it as hygiene, closer to brushing teeth than to going to the gym. It is non-negotiable, performed regardless of mood, weather, or schedule, and it carries no expectation of sweat or exhaustion. It is also social. Neighbors in a Tokyo park perform it together at sunrise. Co-workers face each other on a factory floor. Grandchildren join grandparents on summer mornings, stamping attendance cards for the school holiday version. Compare that to the American model, solitary, performance-driven, gym-based, and optional. The barrier is not physical capacity, it is cultural framing. Movement designed to wake the joint safely will always outperform movement designed to punish the muscles, especially after 60, when recovery shrinks and consistency becomes the only variable that matters. The difference lies not in the exercises themselves, but in how a society positions them within daily life. Here are 3 steps to start tomorrow morning. Step 1. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart within 10 minutes of waking before coffee before screens. Step 2. Perform any version of gentle arm circles, trunk side bends, and controlled knee bends for 3 to 5 minutes. Exact form matters less than showing up. Step 3. Do it again the next day and the day after that, treating it as hygiene rather than exercise. Continue with the Healthy Aging Mastery playlist, your complete guide with exercises just like the Radio Taiso movements and more for staying strong, steady, and independent.